meeting of the Education and Pupil Services Committee will please come to order. Is it Mrs. Kelly or Mr. Marshalak? Will you please begin with an overview of the agenda items for this evening?
Good evening. Tonight we have 3 agenda items. The first of which is informational only. Ms. Buford's going to discuss the Upper Darby School District brand ambassadors. Agenda item number 2 is for board action. It is the 2021 school year calendar, the one-page calendar. Ms. Kelly will review that with for the board and the public. And agenda item number 3 is informational only, which is the delayed school start times for adolescents. I'll be reviewing the Joint State Commission presentation or report, in addition to what a first look at what some items could look like here at the Upper Darby School District to meet those recommendations. That's it.
All right. So if you want to start with agenda item number 1, that would be great.
Good evening, President Brown, Vice President Mitchell, and Board of Directors members, Superintendent Dr. McGarry, and other administrators, staff, parents, students, and visitors. As you know, the district has been engaged in a robust branding campaign over the past year. And throughout that process, we have adopted a new logo. We have a new tagline, Opportunity, Unity, and Excellence. We've reconstituted our adopted district colors, purple and gold. We have unified our schools through the solidarity of Royals Pride across the district. We're also increasing our community engagement and outreach through a heightened social media presence, an expanded and working relationship with the media, and an evaluation of how we might utilize our current communications tools more thoroughly and impactfully. So in an effort to continue in our upward trend of expanding community outreach and of telling our stories and sharing the positive things that are happening in our schools every day, we will be introducing an initiative entitled the Brand Ambassadors. So tonight, we plan to review the purpose of this initiative. We will provide an overview of the steering committee, and we will also review some key initial action steps. So what is a brand ambassador? Upper Darby School District brand ambassadors share a mutual commitment to supporting the district's mission, vision, and goals through telling the positive stories of ways in which the district provides and promotes opportunity, unity, and excellence for all of our students. So a brand ambassador is a micro-influencer in that they give us access to their network of social influence by way of word-of-mouth marketing. Brand ambassadors understand our brand's promise intuitively because they either have lived it or they're experiencing it right now. Brand ambassadors are to have a genuine passion for our students, their families, this community, and our district. So key to that is recognizing the power in numbers. So alone, they may not have the influence or the celebrity to impact our given market. However, as a group or a team with targeted strategic goals, they can gain significant ground in impacting others. They will assist us in meeting our goal to reach all corners of this district, all parents, their family members, neighbors, business owners, and other students. As our recent increased social media presence proves, there are so many amazing things happening across our district and schools every day. So we're not having problems finding content at all. We can access content all day. We're thankful to our amazing teachers and staff for literally just flooding our email, our text, the social media at upperdarby.com email address. They're just flooding it with so much beautiful content. We see classroom lessons, events, celebrations, pictures, videos and all kinds of content that show supportive relationships between students and teachers and how they just love one another. Brand ambassadors will help us to transform that content that we get into messages. Brand ambassadors are key to finding ways to get our brand's messaging inside of other district stakeholders. They will turn the moments that we are putting out on social media and across all of our platforms into messaging events. That's the goal, so that it's not just content, there's emotion and experience behind it. So there's no denying the value of peer-to-peer marketing. But I want to make this clear that it is imperative that this group grows authentically and organically. This is a grassroots initiative, and it will only work if it is from the people and they have an opportunity to contribute to the story we are telling about who we are as a school district. So why is this initiative important? As you can see here, community engagement and outreach is critical to advancing the long-term perception of our district. They are helpful in helping us to celebrate the diversity of our district. They foster unity and connection. And I believe personally the most important thing is a sense of belonging, that this is a place where everyone belongs. And they also are key to active recruitment. We need brand ambassadors to recruit other brand ambassadors, not for Rhonda Buford to recruit brand ambassadors. We need students and parents to do that for us. So I believe that there is a great number of people who have attended our schools, excuse me, our current students. They have children in our district, they work here, they recreate here. I think that there are tons of people who would love to talk about their good experiences if they are prompted with opportunities to do so. And that's what branding ambassadors do. They will be key to providing these opportunities. Our goal is to have them lead conversations into positive dialogues about Upper Darby School District. So now that we know what a brand ambassador is, what a brand ambassador does, and why a brand ambassador is important, how do we get started? If you see on the screen, we're going to be focusing on a core planning team, and we're going to call that planning team a steering committee. This team's goal is to focus on the upstart of the program and to develop an action plan. This core team will be the go-to when the brand ambassadors get going so that we can make sure that we are sticking to what we intend. They will come from all walks of life. Excuse me, just getting over a cold. It will come from all walks of life. Across the district, we'll have student representatives, parent and teacher representatives, school administrators, people from all bargaining units. We want athletic and student activities groups. We want the alum to be here. We want people from the superintendent's cabinet, well, one person from the cabinet, besides myself. And of course, you guys need to be represented there, but we really, since it's grassroots, we really want to focus on the people, besides ourselves and cabinet and in the school board of directors. But we definitely need that representation there too, because that too is a viewpoint that must be shared through the brand ambassadors. So we're looking to have a blend of representatives from various groups across the district and townships. Members of this steering committee would be those who are vested and interested in the success of Upper Darby School District. So I've outlined some key initial action steps for the committee to consider on the next slide. The first thing we need to do is always do a data review. We wanted to assess what we have. So we're going to do a mass communications data collection and review. What this will entail is looking at our Instagram followers, looking at our Facebook. By the way, we just hit 4,000. Our goal was that for the end of the year. We're done. 4,000. Not done. Sorry, Dr. McGarry, never done. So, yeah, 4,000 already. And Instagram are who? That's mostly the kids. So, and their friends and their family. So we like that. And then on average with Facebook, we're getting about 200 more a month, which is amazing. So again, content and getting people interested and engaged, no problem with that. Getting people to really have those stories come forth without us, seeking them is what we're hoping to do. So we're looking at that mass collection, that data collection, because that will tell us what we're starting with. And then we'll review that information as well. We'll also send out a survey in that process where we will try to find out how people access information from the district, how they communicate with the district. Are you receiving your Wednesday folders? Are you an Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter follower? So we'll send that out, and it'll just be specific to how communication is received from the district. Then, we will start that action planning process. This is a deep process, goals, timelines, meeting schedule, budget, and resources that we can plan out for the next school year. We would like to start off with a promotional introduction video, meet the brand ambassadors video, so we can let them know, like you guys are learning today, more about what are brand ambassadors, why is it important. We want to make sure we get that out to the community. And then we're hoping to feature some videos highlighting our tagline and pulling out one at a time: opportunity, unity, excellence. I had some examples. For instance, if we want to look at excellence, we can follow a student in the beginning of preparing for a play and watch them go through that whole process. And then for opportunity, we could follow a senior from the beginning of starting to prepare for final exams all the way through graduation, so that that family and that child could tell us what having an education, period, and then an education Upper Darby means to them and their family. Those first person accounts are going to be priceless. And then we always want to have training. Can't just like send people out there representing our district without providing them with some training. So to that end, As far as the training, what we're hoping to do is make sure that they're focusing on the development and use of clear and consistent messaging. We don't want people going out there with their own message. We have our message. We want to promote opportunity, unity, and excellence. So there will be some training around how to be clear about that message and how to be consistent with that message. We will train them in how to use swag and promotional materials to advance the district's initiatives. We will talk about the development of powerful hashtags for our social media presence. We will talk about development and use of discussion and questioning techniques so we can draw out district stakeholders. Some of the skills that we, as a former teacher, come naturally to us. We have to actually teach that as a skill to our brand ambassadors so we can engage people appropriately and people can give us their true heartfelt feelings about our district. So I look forward to supporting the Brand Ambassador Steering Committee in planning, recruitment, and ensuring its activities align to our brand, our comprehensive plan, and who we are. And I also look forward to exploring a possible partnership between the township and our brand ambassadors to promote local events and activities. And for example, like if there's an event, we would have our blinged out UD microphone, and we would show up and a student will say, "Hi, I'm so-and-so from Upper Darby School District reporting at," and would say the event, and we're here to find out how many people, are interacting with Upper Darby. Ma'am, do you have any children in Upper Darby School District? Like those sorts of opportunities that we could use, partner with the township on to promote their events as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and I like fun, so that'll be great. And I also will discuss with them maybe some suggestions for startup projects. Like we could talk about environmental messaging to improve brand awareness. Like what does the logo, what do the outsides of our buildings look like? The exterior of our buildings, our schools, our marquees. We could talk about posters, boosting website and social media traffic by using posters. We could talk about social media campaigns. Event and community pop-ups. So we pick a street, just pop up, and give out some swag and interview some people. And this was Dan's idea, take over social media for the day. Have them do that, or for an afternoon to feature an event in the district that they are attending. So maybe for the gala, take over social media for those 2 hours. And hey, I'm at the gala and I'm reporting live, and that would be interesting for kids would tune in to see that as well as their parents. So more and more people today are choosing experiences and interactions instead of things. That's the new generation. They want that personal touch. I recently read in a Forbes magazine that the best brands tell better stories and make you part of them. And that's what Brand Ambassadors is about. That article also goes on to assert that we live in an age where people want to experience everything or to be immersed in a story through the authentic experience of someone else. So to that effect, A brand is not just a logo, a website, a social media platform, or a tagline. Those are things. We're moving in the right direction, but the brand ambassadors will help us to bring it all together. It will give people an experience. The Upper Darby School District brand is who we are and what we can be. And the brand ambassadors will help us to accomplish that. So if you have any questions,
Thank you, Ms. Buford. It's so exciting.
yes, it is.
Very, very exciting. I'm excited about it.
So I really like the presentation, Ms. Buford. Can this be compared to, I know in high school and at my university, I was an ambassador for both, where, you go to those particular students to have them, they know a lot about the school. When the presentation first came up and I heard ambassador, that's what I thought about. I know that this is a brand ambassador and that's very trendy. I think Don and I were saying, having a hashtag is so trendy when there's an event. So I really, having the experience in my own job with doing a lot of events, the pop-up events are a great idea, I think. People really respond to pop-ups, like, oh, what are they doing over there? What's happening? And then when you have the swag, that adds an additional part. So I'm excited about it. Anything I can do to help, I'd like it.
Be in touch.
Okay.
I just want to add to what Gina said, like for the gala, if everybody there had put in whatever their platform was, hashtag Upper Darby UD Gala, right? And maybe their friends had done it and shared it. It's the kind of thing like all of a sudden you have people from really outside going, what is this? Why is this showing up on my Twitter feed or on Facebook or something like that? It's what large companies do all the time, and we're pretty big. It's absolutely something we can do. So
this might be premature, but I know of parents, and I think I had mentioned a story to you of a parent that was really singing the praises of his counselor and the school psychologist and things like that. And he was telling me how happy he was with the care that his child received and the way they handled a very sensitive situation with his child. So that's okay. How does that how do we get those stories to you? How does this? It may be premature. You may not have it.
The same way you would reach out to me with social media, upperdarbySC.org.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and then they reach me by text, by email. People know how to get in touch with me.
All right. Thank you.
I love it, love it, love it, love it. When I first saw the logo being implemented, I wasn't part of the board then. I knew that was going to be a first step, and it was a great first step. And now I love the direction that you've been taking us.
Thank you.
And it's tough work, and I truly appreciate that.
Thank you.
And there's so many opportunities here. I believe that our high school students can be incorporated by utilizing curriculum, courses, digital arts, marketing, right? Those would be fantastic. Yeah, broadcasting. Fantastic courses to incorporate this branding. So not only are we getting the word out, but we are teaching the students how to effectively utilize social media, become entrepreneurs. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing what this produces. So thank you.
Speaking as not an elected official or marketing professional, but as an alumni who went through this district from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade, this is long overdue. In the most positive of ways, and I say it because in the realm of social media, there's no pretty way of putting it. There's a lot of negativity, and a lot of it is unnecessary. And the way that you have this particular initiative structured, it being organic, it being authentic to oneself and who we are and what we do, everything that you were sharing with us, I had a really big bleeping smile on my face the whole time, because I think my generation that came through the school district has been waiting for an opportunity like this, because more people need to be made aware of all the positive things that are happening in the school district. It's one thing to read something in the media or get a hot take, but then to get that kind of grassroots involvement from a wide, diverse array of stakeholders is just amazing. I can't wait to see what happens. I'd be happy to take part in whatever way you feel is possible.
Yeah, I also want to add that it is important for people to get that information, as we realized through our social media, but it's so much more important for people to be able to give the information. You know, I believe, like I said, that there are more, even though we hear the negative, there are more people, I really believe that, there are more people who would say positive things if given the platform, something structured where they can access it and do it in a, with like-minded people. So, yeah, if you get a snapshot of social media, it can be disheartening. But the day-to-day interactions tell us that there are great people out here, and that people do mostly live in a positive way, live their lives in a great way. So let's capitalize on that. Most people that I run into have great things to say about their experience in Upper Darby School District. And then when we have the criticisms, as we have in the past, we've never run away from them. We face them head on. We're going to have authentic, honest conversations. And so the grassroots methodology is so important to this. It has to stay authentic so that the people feel like they own it. So I'm a conduit for that.
Yes, the only word of caution that Aranda and I have discovered in going back and forth with this, and as well as with our solicitor from our current policies, is the Upper Darby School District brand is important, and we want to protect that, and we want to put it out in a positive way. And we have found a lot of individuals promoting themselves as the official Upper Darby School District page for this, and the official Upper Darby School District page from that. So we have listed a multitude of folks acting as if they're officially Upper Darby School District affiliated web pages or communication for sports. There are sometimes 2 and 3 different home and schools when there's really only one home and school. So we are working on also making sure that we clean up the idea of this is the logo, this is the brand, this is where we're going, this is how we're communicating, and that we're going to have those approved venues as well. That's important that we clean that up.
Right, and to that effect, I actually had a conversation with one of those groups today, and I don't think that people realize what they're doing, because the social media, everyone's a reporter, everyone's an expert, and so there's a lot of, I think, there's not any bad intent, it's just about us clarifying that the use of the logo must be associated with the school board's permissions. And we're working through that, Dr. McGarry and I, and it's going to take a while to clean that up and make sure that everyone who should remove official from their pages does so and puts an appropriate description of what their communication offers, but we will get that cleaned up.
Case in point, I was looking at some of the videos from the gala, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Someone had sent a link for the YouTube videos, and it was the videos were very nice, and I was complimenting Jason Taylor on the videos, and he said, "Not my work." He said, we haven't finished editing them yet. So, that's a case of, someone putting out all the videos as if that's the official Upper Darby product, and it was not.
Correct, yes. So it's always a balance of having it be accessible, as Dr. McGarry's dream is. We want people to use the logo. We want people to bond with it. And then also protecting our intellectual property.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a bright future ahead of us.
Yes, we do.
Can I move on to the calendar now? Thank you. Thank you.
So this is the second item on the agenda tonight is the 2021 school calendar. This is where Aranda and I get to really work together as curriculum and instruction as well as communications. And our goal this year was to make sure that the calendar was easy to read. We did provide hard copies in the back because we know that this is going to be harder to see like that. And to capture all of the key pieces, the only way really to see it is to have the calendar in front of you. So our goal was to capture it, of course, on the grid, a normal calendar, but also to provide parents a summary of the events, which is on the back side, the second sheet of the calendar. I know as a parent myself, the first thing I look for in the school calendar is where are the red dates? Where is it going to break our routine that you have to make sure somebody is home or something is going to be different than the normal pieces. So they're the red dates that you would see on the summary of events, and I am not going to go through and read everything to you. There is no point in that unless you want to stay here for quite some time. But I do want to highlight some of the key pieces. Our first day for the 2021 school year for our teachers is going to be August 25th. And teachers will be in a 4-day professional development. We'll keep the teacher workday, which teachers have asked for. They think it's very helpful as we bridge into the new school year. No, yeah. So that will be August 25th, 26th, and 27th, 28th being that workday. We did work with the UDA on building the calendar. We went to our IAC, which is our instructional group, and got some feedback from them. We took all that into account when Aranda and I were looking at these days. We also get input from the building principals as well as the cabinet as we are looking at all of these dates. So the first student day, the next big event would be August 31st. That's when our students would begin. We have half days built in there. We started that last year, which allows us to provide some professional development on the back end of that first week of school, which is August 31st through September 3rd, leading up to Labor Day. We are starting before Labor Day because this is the latest Labor Day can really fall. So we need to make sure that, we get all of our days in. The next thing would be winter break. Winter break's a little bit different this year because of where it falls. It is December 23rd would be the last school day, so the 24th would be our first day off, but then it runs all the way to January 4th, so it extends longer on the back end this year, which is a little bit different. But really, everything mirrors what happened last year. Again, a full week of spring break would happen on 3/29 through April 2nd. Yeah, March 29th, to April 2nd, which was at the top of this calendar right there, which is a full week of spring break. As soon as we get back from spring break, we have 2 weeks and prepare for PSSAs. So we have a testing right there, and we also have Keystone testing, which we can't move those windows. Those are the windows that are dedicated by the state. So Keystone exams would happen in January, and then in May again. The graduation, another big date that dictates our calendar. This year it will fall on June 11th. And they're the big dates that we usually share and go over. Our professional development days are all highlighted. We have approximately 35 hours of professional development, again, which is not nearly enough. So when we have those half days, it does help us when we're building in or when we have new curriculum or new curricular resources that we have to train our teachers on. It was a great help this year as we implemented a new ELA series in the elementary schools. We're hoping to use those same type of days to provide the professional development as we adopt a new math program, K through 5 as well, and a new ELA program, which has been approved for the middle schools as well. So that's the calendar in a nutshell. Aranda and I have bonded with these documents at this point, but we will welcome any questions that the board may have at this point.
On the lower right-hand side, Act 80 exemption days are days that we put on the calendar in advance that we wouldn't have to open up the calendar again. They're already there. It makes it easier on the board and the public. That due to inclement weather, we try to point out the number of student days that we have. The terminology that this is important. It'll play into what is called Act 80 and the number of hours students have to be in school and the number of days. That will play in a part of the future conversations tonight about the sleep study. The state of Pennsylvania requires a minimum of a number of days and a number of hours at particular levels students have to attend. What you're allowed to do in the Commonwealth is days that are professional development days where students are not in session but the staff is getting professional development. You can apply for exemption for those days. If it's an inclement weather day somewhere else, you don't have to stay later in June. You can use that Act 80 day to count as a student in a school day. That's why you're here at school saying, how many days do we have left, or what are we up to? So we'll let the board know. Kindergarten, there's 10 days to play with, 1st through 11th, there's 7, and grade 12, there's 6, because the seniors graduate at 180 days, 182 days, 183 days for grades 1 through 11. The other important distinction that came up, we put this moniker, this alert on the bottom here on the lower right-hand side a couple years ago. It was probably 4 or 5 years ago now, that we want to make everybody aware of the fact that if we have a horrible winter, the board may decide that spring break or other in-service days may be removed as days off, and then we will have school session. And this calendar, by adopting it, has made it clear to the teachers union and to the public, be aware of those holidays, that if we have a bad winter, spring break may be a time where the board says, you know what, rather than extending all the way late into June, the board will now reserve the right to say, we'll have school over spring break. We will not have off those days. That's important, to, especially to the newer board members, that lower right-hand side. By taking action on this, if you do decide to in the future, it allows you to say, we're giving notice that we could take away some of those days and instead of extending the school year in June. I just wanted to point that out.
I was wondering, Ms. Kelly, if you could review why 9th and 10th graders, right, report on the first day, and then 11th and 12th report on the second day. I think for some residents that may be confusing, and what would be the reason for that? So if we could just mention that.
Absolutely. So on August 31st, 9th and 10th report, and and then the second day would be 11th and 12th. The reason being is we have to get ID pictures for all of the students. Having almost 4,000 students here all at the same time to get the pictures taken is nearly impossible. So Mrs. Simone and Ms. Buford have really worked hard in seeing the best way to do that. It is also provides us a few more of the additional hours on the back end for professional development, where we are implementing new curriculum and going through that to keep it more balanced with the elementary and middle schools as well. But it mainly is the homeroom piece, and also grade level assemblies that occur. So to have all students get to a grade level assembly during that first day of school, you just couldn't do it. So it was best to start staggering the schedules there, and then to have a full day on the second, and then the third.
I think in the past, when we used to have full days in the beginning of the school year, the 9th and 10th graders came in the morning, and the 11th and 12th graders came in the afternoon. It also created a lot of busing
There was.
situations. So with the half day for all schools that we implemented, mostly because of weather, heat issues and not having air conditioning in every building.
correct.
So I think that's why
Another piece.
it looks like that. And I think, it seems to be going okay from what I could see.
Well, I did want to mention one more. Now, for quarter one, the end of the marking period is November 5th, okay? The number of instructional days for that marking period seems to be on the lower end compared to the others, and because of those half-days in the beginning of the year, there's additional missed instructional time. So I think the administration should take a look at looking at the calendar and how many instructional days, and whether or not that needs to be inflated a little bit to take in consideration of what we're doing in the beginning of the year.
We can definitely look at that. We do try to balance them the best we can. They're about 45 days apiece without it falling on a strange day. Sometimes it falls on, a half day or something like that, which we try to avoid, or a professional development day. So we do try to balance it, but we could double check that 11.5 one.
It's true. It's 44 to 45 for all of it.
And one of the other things that I hope those who are able to attend the Advocacy Day would please talk to our legislators about. I know it's not necessarily on the platform of PSBA, but if you look at the calendar, there are a lot of instructional days that are counted, but they're actually keystone exams. Students don't even report to school unless they're taking them. They're only end-of-course tests, and it is a lot of days in our calendar, and also the 9 days for PSSA testing, where we lose instructional days. So, just testing. That's just my, anyone who's going, if you can talk about that. Any other comments, questions, or concerns from board members? All right, so thank you. The next one is the delayed school start times for adolescents. It's an informational item. Mr. Marshallak?
Yes, so tonight, I'm going to go through a couple different topics here based on the delayed start time for adolescents. And again, this is informational only. There are no decisions or any recommendations that are going to be presented tonight as a result of this information. I'm sure many of you are aware, we've had this posted on our website for a number of weeks now, the Joint State Government Commission on Sleep Deprivation in Adolescents. It's been gaining a lot of momentum here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and across the country in regards to delaying school start times for adolescents, meaning middle school and high school students to the 8:30 start time is a recommended start time. And tonight I'll go through some of the main highlights of this report. Again, it's on our website. I attached a link here, which I'll show you as well. A lot of good information that was presented from the medical community and from the advisory committee that the Joint State Commission had to nominate or to, direct to create this report. So tonight, we'll talk about the research, the medical research behind the delayed start time. We'll have a first look at potential options, and I want to underscore the word potential. These are not recommended or recommendations tonight. This is potential options that if we were to meet the recommendations, it will be a starting point for the work the district will be doing to really investigate and thoroughly review this report and the process we would have to follow to implement the recommendations. Estimated cost as well. Again, rough numbers to start with. And also the next steps that we'll take to continue this investigation and come back to the board at a later time with our findings. So a lot of the supporting research that you'll see in the Joint State Commission report was from the medical community. And largely it's the biology of students, adolescents, while during puberty or pre-pubescent times, that their circadian rhythm is offset or delayed during those years, which also creates, a lack of melatonin development, which is a hormone. Which all of these things in biology of a young student have them stay up later. They call it the sleep-wake cycle. So they tend to be awake later in the evening and are not responding to the natural dimming of the lights or the sun going down that many adults or even young children are used to seeing and respond to. Which means that they tend to be awake later. And traditionally, many of our high schools and secondary schools start between 7 and 7:30 or between 7 and 8 o'clock, which in comparison in the report, which you can see, the equivalent would be to an adult getting up at 4 in the morning every single day would be how they equate it in the report. But again, the research is a consensus from the medical community and a lot of organizations for the recommendation that schools should be striving to delay start times at the secondary level to ideally an 8:30 a.m. start time, ideally. But again, getting to as close to that start time as possible is a recommendation from this committee and this advisory group in this report. But again, the sleep deprivation has many impacts on the social and emotional well-being, academic, safety concerns, and all, it's all driven and proven by research from the medical community. All the items that are in this report are documented and cited at the bottom of the report, so you can kind of look up that research independently and review it as well. So it's just an example. I wanted to show you where to find it. It's a joint government state commission, and then what it is, it's a bipartisan group of executives from the Senate and the House of Representatives in Pennsylvania. And they're tasked with researching and going through hot topics that impact the public. This commission tasked, as part of Senate Resolution 417 of 2018, to develop an advisory committee, and they're listed in this report as well, to thoroughly research this topic and come back with recommendations, which they have in this report. And again, this is the report that Pennsylvania is looking at right now, and they've noted many other states in this report as well, and what other districts have gone through and other states have gone through in terms of where they are in this process. But again, if you want to look for it again, it's on our website. You can also find it here as well.
Hyperlinking it in the presentation. It's very helpful.
Sure. It's long, so if you haven't read it yet, take some time to look at it. So moving forward, again, and I'll go back to saying this again, that we want to make sure that we're very clear that this is a first look, and I want to give a lot of credit, which I haven't done yet, to the people who are involved with this committee, this group that we formed here at the district level. A lot of hours of very, very long, hard work, including on the early out and before Thanksgiving. I made them stay till about 5 o'clock doing some work, and everyone else was home hanging out with their families. I appreciate it. But Mr. Marvin Lee, who did a lot of the number crunching, Craig Rogers, Ms. Wendy Elgart, Dr. Chris Puglisi, Jennifer Jones. And we brought in a lot of other central office people as well to review, Ms. Kelly, Mr. Salerno, Dr. Manfrey, and some of the building principals from various levels to kind of have a go-through, see where we are, at a first look at where these options could be. Look for some pitfalls, things that we didn't necessarily see or catch to start. But again, this still needs a lot of other eyes put on it and taking a look at it, and feedback from our community and our students included, to really kind of vet through and go through this process at a deeper level. So I'll get to that in a minute as we go through this presentation. But again, potential options to look at. Wrong one, sorry. So option number one. And again, you'll see there's a variety of options. There's more than just a couple. There's about 7. And some have A and B because they were very similar to a certain degree, but had one aspect that might be off a little bit. So option one, potential option one, again, keeping with the goal of moving the high school and the secondary schools, middle school included, to an 8:30 or later start time. That was what we worked on. Also maintaining instructional hours and days within the school year. So we had to maintain, and Mr. And Tim, what's the last name? Lambert? Tim Lambert, my goodness. We had him come in with his numbers and crunch the numbers and make sure we were not off base. So we had all the times that were in there, did meet the instructional minutes per year that were required by the state of Pennsylvania, or Department of Education. So option one, again, is looking at an 8:30 start time, ending the high school at 3:01, middle school 8:45 to 3:20. Elementary A would be starting at 8 o'clock. We thought moving it up a little bit earlier and maybe flip-flopping the times would help with transportation costs, and having an elementary B to a 7:45 start time, which we know is drawing a lot of criticism in Lower Merion right now. But again, as you can see in the next slide, it didn't really impact the potential costs having a couple of different options that way. But again, this is one option that if we were to look at it, we could look at this way. Estimated costs, you're looking at non-reoccurring costs and reoccurring costs. The non-reoccurring costs would be the purchase of additional buses. And in this particular option, we would need many more buses to pull this off. The reoccurring cost would be the cost every year to maintain this initiative if we were to do this, with the hiring of bus drivers, additional routes, paying for bus drivers, and maintenance of the fleet. Option 1B, you can see, it was almost identical. It is identical. Comparing that offset, that 15, 20 minutes did not have much of an impact. So again, things to be mindful of and consider as we move forward through this review. Option 2, we looked at going to the high school again, keeping them at 8:30, and using Block 1 as a potential cyber course. So currently there's 5 blocks at the high school. You're looking at Block 1 where every student or all students would take a cyber course as their first block course. The theory behind that was if students are naturally up later and active and functioning at a later time, they could use that time to do their cyber work, and then in the morning use that time to sleep in later and come to school a little bit later. But again, students report at 8:30, which would be a little bit earlier or sooner than when block 1 will be over. They'll be with a potential check-in with their teacher to have the one-to-one face and support with their classroom teacher or their block 1 teacher. In this particular option, we suggested no change at the middle school level. Currently, Beverly Hills starts at 8 a.m. or roughly around 8 o'clock in the morning with students arriving, and instruction starts, Drexel Hill, 8:30. So if we had to sacrifice there in some way, we feel like that's one area that we could have been sacrificed. But again, this was just our team looking at this.
May I interrupt for a second? Is
Sure.
this option two to maintain the amount of credits that would have been lost in option one? Is that why there would be a cyber option?
So, good question. So in option one for the high school, yes, that would be, that first option would be basically reducing the day by a block, which would reduce the opportunity to accumulate as many credits as we currently do. So in the option two would be to maintain the credits.
Can I also ask a clarifying question? Just that the 8:30 start time is, so that this block one, it's called block one, but really it's just happening online whenever, but there's some shortened, so a regular block is X minutes, and now there's a sort of a block one period that's some shortened period that's occurring at the beginning. Am I
Well, it
understanding
would
that
be
correctly?
really it would be almost like a blended course, and essentially. So you would have the students would do the bulk of the work in the cyber world, and then come in to check in with their teacher. Again, if they needed it. Some students may not need that check-in, but they'll still be present at 8:30. and can use that time to continue working or whatever it might be.
And how much of how does that compare to the full block? Like, how much of the time are they?
Well, the
minutes.
the course would be run in a similar way that this being,
No, I understand, but the minutes in the classroom, is it,
sorry, I understand. 79 minutes is the current block.
Right.
Here at Upper Darby High School.
and so now this is shortened by 30, is that what you're saying? Or, no, 60.
So and we'll get to these in other options. You will be seeing a reduction in instructional minutes at the high school.
No,
to
I'm
pull-
just trying to
pull these off.
understand. Yeah, I get it.
Part of the issue with this is that as we go out and we talk about this, is the idea that teachers, the issue here with each option, I know you're going to get to eventually, is the teacher contract is a problem, and the sleep study points out that if you have current contracts that say the start and the end time at certain levels, here teachers are still reporting at the same time they are now. They would not be with students per se in that block, as you're pointing out. Students would arrive at 8:30 when they normally arrive at 7:15, 7:20. So yes, you're reducing the time period in there. The other issue that you could run into this with this option as we walk it through, on paper it might sound good, but it could create potential staffing as far as coverages and everything else because of preps, the way preps work. So what I think it sounds like the team is doing here is presenting an option that says one way to try to limit elementary and middle school is to consider kids taking online classes and that they could do it at night or different times, as you pointed out, and there'd still be a teacher available when they checked in for a 20 to 30-minute check-in to check in on their work and their progress, which was exactly right. How you see that?
Who are on our cyber platform as a whole, they're considered meeting the instructional minutes by taking those courses. So it would be similar in that sense, but it would not be face-to-face 79 minutes. So again, potential costs for this, there's a couple different things to consider here. One is the one-to-one technology. Currently, we have a plan in place to eventually get to one-to-one here at our high school. Next school year, be a phasing of another 700 devices, and the following year, the 21-22 school year, another 700 devices, which would get us to potentially the one-to-one, which we would need to pull this off. If we were to do that sooner, there would be an upfront cost or a one-time cost sooner than we would expect to see it. Each Chromebook is about $300 per Chromebook, so we would need to have also on hand roughly 200 Chromebooks kind of in a bank, that if things were to happen during the day or things would get lost, we have a backup really accessible. The options with the courses would be that we could potentially look at purchasing a cyber course as an a la carte program or course for each student, which would cost about $79 per child per class, estimated $300,000, or we could write our own. That would be every year, recurring cost every year as well. Or we could write our own, which we estimated to be about 65 courses needed to start. And again, you can see the numbers there we worked out for typical curriculum writing to be an estimated cost of $390,000. Again, that might be a one-time cost to start, then every year might be less and less as we develop more and additional courses to meet that. Transportation, you can see, is still a significant impact. We still need a lot of buses. The issue is that we have a lot of students arriving at the same time at our elementary and our high school, which on bookends of our transportation routes, they're the largest groups of students we move around, and they happen at really opposite ends of the spectrum here. But again, this is potential costs if we wanted to look at doing this as well. Option 3 would be similar to some of the options we talked about, but again, keeping the 5 block currently that we have, but we can condense the courses, each course, to be 65 minutes in place of the current 79 minutes. Teachers would still arrive at the contracted time. Students would arrive at 8:30 at our high school. There'd be no change at our middle school or elementary schools. And you can see potential costs. Again, not much different from all the other options that we looked at. So there'll still be a significant cost up front because, again, students will be arriving at the high school, one of our middle schools, and our elementary schools roughly around the same time. Option 4, which would be having high school students not coming at 8:30, but coming at 8 o'clock, which you'll see some of our other local districts have adopted this around the start time to try to strive to meet the needs. It's not hitting the 8:30 benchmark for the ideal start time, but it is delaying it by a little bit. Instructional time would have to be reduced in this situation by about 8 minutes per block. Still remain 5 blocks per day. Teachers would arrive at contracted time. And again, no change at the middle school or elementary level in this recommendation or this possible option. Again, a significant cost. A little bit less in terms of the reoccurring cost per year, but still be an upfront cost of transportation and purchasing of buses. Potential option 5 would be to delay every level 1 hour. So that meaning the high school would start at 7:30. It would not end until 3:41. Middle school would start at 9:30 at Drexel Hill, 9 o'clock for Beverly Hills, and elementary would be at 9:50, ending at 4:15. Transportation, you would think, what we anticipated would be that there would be a wash. There would not be any increase in transportation. However, after crunching the numbers, looking at the cost, we have many, many non-public students that we transport within our community, whether it's charter schools or to non-public schools or private schools that are parentally placed, and a lot of schools that are approved private schools through the special ed process. And their times may not be changing. So we still have to transport those students where we might have shared a bus or shared a route with some of those students. This time we will not be able to do that. So we would have to buy additional buses to see this model through and a reoccurring cost. Not as much as the other options, but again, it would be a cost. Option number 6, in looking at all this, there's also some consideration that should be, discussed with input from a variety of people that we have right now a facilities plan that we're currently working towards, that the goal is to have more community and neighborhood schools, where there may not be a need necessarily for buses in some of our catchment areas. Also a significant cost. So does it make sense to go out and purchase a lot of buses at one point in time where we might not need them in a couple of years? So one option could be to stop and pump the brakes on this for a little bit, continue to revise it and look at it, but complete and review the options again once our facilities plan has fully evolved and is in place. But again, the goal being that we strive for high school, middle school to start at 8:30. With the elementary, there would potentially be no need for change for those times. So that's one additional potential option. The costs are unknown. We don't know what that would look like if we were to pursue that for transportation. And then option 7 would be no change at this time, which is always something we could consider. But again, these are potential starting points, and I think the next steps which we'll go into will be kind of where we are with this, getting input, and I'll explain to you how we're going to do that. But we also wanted to have everybody the opportunity to see what these could look like. You may have been hearing reports or seeing news reports from other districts who are putting things in place. And one word of caution would be that not every district is the same, and the same challenges or the same solutions that one school district might have found might not work here in our school district. So we'd be very individualized in terms of how we look through and really look at this process. Some of our neighboring school districts right now that are currently going through, and you can see in the report, they listed a whole host of districts across the Commonwealth, including other states that are looking at this. But just to get a snapshot of what some other local area in southeastern Pennsylvania districts have been going to, start times that they've selected, and the years that they've implemented this. And some are still currently reviewing this. Many of these districts, will also say that it took upwards of 2 years to really thoroughly investigate this. The research has been around probably since the early, maybe mid, 2000s, 2005, 2006, but really started gaining momentum, recently in the last, decade, 2014, around that time frame. So people have been reviewing this and looking at this for a number of years and are starting to put their recommendations into place. So I think it's important that we do our due diligence with this project and with investigating this, because it is, important. It is out there. We want to make sure we do a thorough job in really investigating this. So our next steps, what we would like to do is we want to send a survey, which we have ready to go, out to all of our parents, our students at the secondary level, our staff, and anyone that involves the community. So we'll get that. So we have it ready to go. We'll push it out in a parent link to all people that would potentially impact. We set up 3 different school community forums, one on February 13th at 7 p.m., which would be about a half an hour after our next comprehensive planning committee meeting. So we hope to get many of those members of that team there to hear and get feedback at that point. March 6th will be a morning session here at the high school at 10 o'clock. And March 31st will be an afternoon session for those who couldn't make the night, evening, or morning time. And you can see through this, we're going to go through a number of different ways to gain community input. We've established an email address, sleepstudy@upperdarby.sd.org, where people can send their suggestions, recommendations, questions, thoughts. So if they can't participate either by the survey or coming face-to-face and hearing about it and talking with us, they can send their ideas and thoughts through this through the email address. Based upon all that information, we're going to synthesize all that and review it and go through it and potentially look at revising options or maybe there's something we didn't consider or think about based upon community feedback, and then present our findings of that feedback at the May 26th committee meeting and kind of where we are in this next step of the process. I think it would be, it would not be a good idea that we'd be looking at doing this for next school year. We would want to really review this potentially for maybe a future school year at this point in time. I don't think there'll be enough time to really thoroughly investigate this. But these would be what my recommendations and the team's recommendations would be for as the next step to really investigate this report and the recommendations and to really do our due diligence with this information. Any questions from the board?
Thank you, Mr. Marshalack. Any questions?
There's so many things to consider when you're looking at this. If you're staggering the start times, I mean, sports and chorus and band and aftercare and before care. How do you reconcile all of that data and come back with a recommendation? It sounds like it's endless, the amount of things to consider that would be affected by altering the start times of school.
So I mean, what we've learned from other area school districts who've been through this is that there's going to be some give and take at some level. It will never be a perfect situation for every person affected. There are possible solutions for many of the things that you mentioned. Some things might be more difficult for others to pull off than other groups. So it's a process, and it's a very, very long process of people talking, discussing. The way they described it and the way we've kind of found this process to be is putting it like a puzzle together and then taking it apart and putting it back together and then revising again and mixing up. And so it's a long, interesting process how to make those work. But we have to remember, at the end, not everyone is going to be happy with the potential outcomes. There's going to be some sacrifice made at some level, whether it's financial or personal, whatever it might be, to if we want to achieve these goals.
And you made it clear after your study, one of the options is to do nothing, to stay as is, stay the
Correct.
course, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you. I did want to say on, for the community who's listening in or in the room tonight, the sleep study that Mr. Marshall so graciously linked in the presentation is also on our website. I think it's right in the middle of it, where they really dive into everything from lights on sports fields to kids, the challenges. They really, in my opinion, didn't have a ton of solutions for how that would work. And when you ask around to some other school board members, that are currently implementing this, it seems a little concerning. I don't know if Dr. McGarry has something to add from the superintendent perspective, as far as striking the right balance. The thing is, we're all different, right? The school districts, but the science isn't. So that's a concern we have to consider.
Yeah, compliments, Ed, to you and to the team. I know you put many, many, many hours together. And Mr. Puglisi, Ms. Elgart. I know a lot of the team met and put a lot of time and effort into this. And I know this is just a real first look. I know Marvin was a part of it. Craig was a part of it. A lot of hours above and beyond what you're doing. And I appreciate that we're cautiously moving in this direction. We're not just going to say tonight, hey, board, pick one of these options and let's go, because that would backfire, I think, in a hurry. We have to really be smart about it. I think Mr. Brown asked a really good question. There's a lot of puzzle pieces to think about when you put this together. In my review of the sleep study, there are some key factors that you really have to think about. One, the top one being a teacher's contract. It talks about that, I think, in the part that you're highlighting, Ms. Mitchell. I think Ed was bringing forward the idea of youth programs. If kids' days are pushed back and our youth programs are important in the community, and we don't have a lot of lighting on, not forget our fields, but the youth fields that may not have that. Are there municipal codes that don't allow lighting on those fields? What would that do after school? If elementary school kids' days are different and they're used to having their adult, their teenage brother or sister pick them up, but they're still in school because, or there's a different way we're releasing kids. Teacher's contract, student release time, youth programs after school, all of those are factors, all those puzzle pieces that both of you, I think, are pointing out. They're important. There's also a side of this where people are like, it doesn't matter. It's good for kids. You figure out how to do it. I think we all agree that what's good for kids, we should try to do it. But it's going to be a give and take, and we got to be patient about that and give people also time to make those changes. If a parent gets their children off to school in elementary school early for daycare, but they're not going to elementary school until 9-something now, that's a factor too. On the back end, that might benefit some elementary school parents that kids don't get out until 4:15 because they're working later in the afternoon. So there's a lot of pros and cons. I appreciate, and I hope the board agrees, that we take our time and we gather this feedback and we talk about it. We should hear from our teachers. We should hear from different people. Some of our teachers are working 2 jobs. So if that pushes back in their day, that might be another issue that comes into place. There's a lot to take into this. And Ms. Mitchell, to your point, and sitting with other superintendents, it impacts everybody differently. And I know Ed has explained to this, Ed Marshall has explained this to me when he brought me into the group and we went through this, is we cannot compare ourselves to any other school district. We are a large school district, and this is the feedback that you gave me. So you said to me, prepping me, don't compare me to somebody else. We've got to be aware of the fact that we're Upper Darby, we're larger, we have different needs, our community is different, and we've got to navigate that as well. So we have to be smart when we execute this and we share this out publicly, that we are not going to be in the chasing after anybody or comparing ourselves to everybody else. As Aranda pointed out in the brand ambassadors, we're Upper Darby. We got to see what it works best for us, what we can pull off, and how we go about doing it. It's complex. We've got to be patient, and hope everybody tonight captures this by saying we are not making any decisions tonight. It's simply we're doing our due diligence as administration for this board and the public. The sleep study was published. We think we want to at least show that we're looking into it and what we could potentially do, but we have miles to go before we sleep, I think. I wanted to put that. I know you like poetry.
Just a few quick, short remarks. As everyone dives into this topic, I really encourage everyone to review and read and not be afraid to ask questions about that sleep study, because we won't get too far in this deliberation process, no matter where it takes us, if we don't have some kind of common foundation or at least some basic level of understanding of what's in play here. Another thing I wanted to bring up is a word of encouragement to be involved. This is one of those opportunities where you can be very hands-on in what goes on with your schools and your district, and this is a very substantial topic. And come out to those meetings. Make yourselves available to be able to attend those. Send emails. Send as many emails as you want to that address up there. We need that feedback. We're better when we have more feedback. And another thing I want to also put out there is, as we engage this process, and it's going to be an arduous one, I can tell. And you might even come into it with a preconceived notion, good or bad, based upon how much you did or didn't read the study or what your personal preferences happen to be. But go into that process with a little bit of an open mind. There is going to be give, there's going to be some take. Maybe there's a perspective that you might learn from someone else as you get to know all of the goings on with the different stakeholders and stuff like that. So just keep an open mind, and also make sure that when you are in your own mind kind of coming to a conclusion, well, you want to do this or you want to do that, make sure you're not only thinking about yourself, but also how it's going to affect the other families who may benefit from us really seriously considering coming as close to that optimum start time as possible.
Just wanted to say thank you to you and the team for doing the work, going ahead and doing work that's difficult and presenting something that's not easy to receive. So earlier tonight we talked about having ambassadors, and ambassadors are those cheerleaders. What's also important in these arenas are change agents. So when we talk about community, though we're not supposed to compare each other to other school districts, that's what our community does. When we sit back with our family and we want to know what's going on in Unionville and what they do over in Jersey, and it's important that we throw this on the table, start the conversation now. What does it look like? Give them the links to the research and the study, knowing that it's not a single person's effort, but a team's effort, and that we're accepting feedback and we're looking at potential options and not looking at recommendations. I think is very critical, important, and what makes the school district awesome.
Mr. Marshallak, in regards to the estimates that you posted on the PowerPoint, roughly $3 million non-recurring and roughly the same for recurring, roughly how many buses would the district purchase? Like with that, what is that looking like?
So anywhere between 35 to as low as 12. So the lowest the dollar amount would be about 10 to 12 buses.
Yeah.
The highest dollar amount about 30, 35, 38 school buses.
Okay, and the reason for that question is the follow-up. Currently, where we house our buses, a little tight. I don't think I can see 30 additional buses there. The real estate that would be needed to house these additional buses, is that considered in your non-recurring estimate there? Was that considered?
Well, not in the non-reoccurring estimate for cost, but we did consider that as being a potential barrier to some of the potential options that we had.
Okay.
We knew that they had to go somewhere.
Yeah.
We didn't want to go out and estimate how much it would cost to purchase real estate. It was out of our purview at that time to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. When we have these groups, could we highlight the mental health benefits of the sleep a little bit more than we did tonight? Just the actual study, because I'm not sure everyone's going to read the entire study that's on the website. And I think, I remember going to my very first meeting with some community members who were concerned about this. And I went into it saying, I don't know, when I was in high school, I put myself to bed at 9 o'clock because I knew I needed the 8 hours. And I came into it with that lens, why can't everyone just do that? You know what I mean? And as I learned more, the benefits are tremendous for children, that they're seeing anyway. So could we just make sure that we talk about that? I think what we do best here in Upper Darby is we're always putting students first. Money, it looks like a lot of money, and I agree, it's a little scary on the page, but if we just stay focused on the students and the families. Thank you. For anybody else?
Has there been any discussion, thanks again for all the work, obviously. Has there been any discussion, or has anybody has there been any indication that this will become a mandate from the state?
So that was part of our discussion. We did reach out to a few people at the time in Department of Education who advised it would not become, at this time, not become a mandate. However, we believe that if it were to become a mandate, it would have happened already. They would have come out and said that, but
You never know.
you never know.
You never know.
And if it were to become a mandate, I know Dr. McGarry's ready to jump in with this, but if it were to become a mandate, it would potentially be another unfunded mandate
Sure. I'm not
that
done.
we have
I'm not
to
done.
manage.
Yeah. Right. It would be an unfunded. Yeah, well, and that leads to my next thing. So, I appreciate you got all the work everyone has done to look into this before it's become a mandate, because we're ahead of the game now a little bit. So I really do appreciate that. If it becomes a mandate from the state, this district, all districts must demand that the state provide the funding, the recurring funding, the one-time funding. It just can't be another burden that this community has to bear, and that, like a lot of the things that we have to bear as a financial burden. And so I would hope that in those communications, in those conversations, we engage people in the fact that we may have to get loud and advocate for ourselves to make sure that, look, we can do this because you guys have done the work to figure out how we can do that. And this community's worked together to find a way to do it. But it's going to be a financial burden if it's not funded. And so we need to be loud about, we need to advocate for ourselves on that. And that's all. Keep collecting lessons learned from our neighboring districts, and we want to encourage you to keep doing that. Other people are looking into it, find out what they come up with, and keep working on the community outreach and the feedback. I really appreciate the work.
I just had one thought, that just a suggestion, that I'm assuming that something similar to this is going to be used at these community presentations, that maybe just moving option 7 first, or in some way making it clear, because a lot of the elementary school parents aren't going to know. Not just to say that that's one option, but more because elementary school parents aren't going to know what the current schedule is. And so I would suggest moving option 7 first and saying what the current situation is, because elementary school parents will not know what the middle school and high school start times are. And maybe even fleshing out a little bit of like just 5 blocks, 79 minutes, that kind of stuff. And similarly, under option 5, you've got a comment about how it does, why there is a transportation cost, which makes sense. You're clarifying something that wasn't obvious, but I think to the general public, the costs are probably not obvious from the get-go. And so maybe adding something a little bit earlier, obviously if option 7 becomes option 1, it doesn't have costs, but whatever that first cost estimate is, just a rough comment, like you have on option 5, saying due to changes in bus schedules, additional buses are needed, something like that. I'm sure you've said these things and you'll say them there, but having it on the page always makes it easier.
Sure.
Actually, Vice President Mitchell, as the liaison to the DCIU, is this something, and I don't know if you've had a meeting, but if maybe something could be brought up there, because they do have schools as well. And is this something that they're considering at the DCIU? I'm not sure if that's something.
Sure. We've been discussing this for a long time as part of the Legislative Council that I served on the school board for previously and even into this year. I have not had a meeting as a seated DCIU, but I know that Dr. McGarry and all of the superintendents in the county, including Dr. Edelberg from the DCIU, meet together monthly, I believe, and do discuss these issues. So I'm sure we'll be hearing some more from them. What I did want to say is this, the sleep study group is a very well-organized group. They were able to move legislation through the House and the Senate very quickly to get this study commissioned. I personally have some concerns with that because I did not see that same force with the dyslexia study that was commissioned, that they did a pilot program in 2 school districts in the state of Pennsylvania, something that is really near and dear to my heart, but also affects a lot of students, 1 in 5. So I'm not quite there's a real big push for this, but there doesn't seem to be a push for other things that are really important to students. So I just think if we just use some caution and take our due diligence, and I know that's what you're planning to do, so we appreciate that.
I think it's important, I think to Damien, Don, and to your comments and Ed's and the other comments that have been made tonight, the issue that we're up against in public education is that I think if you come to these meetings, there's a lot going on in public education, and we begin to burn ourselves out. And what happens in public education is it looks like we're always chasing something. And to Don's point, the other issue is, and we've had these healthy conversations in admin and cabinet when we debate these things, it's clear when this report gets published, there's positives, as you pointed out. We're gonna note that. Of course, we're gonna talk about how important this is. However, it's important that third graders read.
Yes.
Where's the funding for third graders to have those things happen, right? And Don, to your point, in the sleep study, when you read it, states made it important and they funded it by hundreds of millions of dollars in those states. Other states are doing it and they're putting it that it's important, but they're funding it that it's so important. The thing I worry about is yesterday I was in Norristown with 30 or more superintendents on stage advocating for this changing of the charter school. Millions of dollars. I look at this and I think, yes, we want to chase after this, but if we have to spend a couple $1 million here and there right away, and then we can't get to the facility study, we have these aging facility studies, and we have to talk about how do we fix the water fountains and the pipes and those different types of things. There's a lot of factors that go into our decision making. We want to do what's best for kids all the time, but education should be important. So I still think it circles back to the key fact here. What's important for kids in public schools? Let's get to the point of narrowing them down and funding them appropriately so we don't have to really chase it this way. This is a good, important priority. Healthy kids, trauma-informed care, things that are good for kids. Let's put a focus on those things and fund it properly so it's not this stressor where you're going to maybe be in a room where a teacher's contract becomes an issue. Teachers deserve to be respected. Elementary school parents, different factors that come into play where everybody's going to be pushing and pulling. If education's important, we should get all these things together and make it a priority and remove the barriers, because as Ms. Dawes pointed out, and I appreciate that, in Upper Darby it's always going to be a different factor because we're so big, right? So we don't want to say that somebody across town can do it and it looks like they have a competitive advantage or something else, and the barrier here becomes another cost. Every kid should learn how to read. Every kid should be safe going to and from school. They should have opportunities just like everybody else does. And if it's good to sleep in, everybody should get to sleep in. And that's the issue that I have. We are beginning to run out of momentum. We're chasing fair funding. Stop the charter school. Now it's this, now it's something else. And all of these board members and superintendents are chasing everything, and sometimes it becomes distracting. What are we trying to get after? That's my concern.
And looking at the list of neighboring schools, even the list is not a uniform list. Everybody has a different solution. So again, ours may come back just based on our size and our scale. It may come back that we should do nothing at all. So no one solution, even though the study is the study and the data is the data, no one solution fits all districts. Ours may in fact be, we're doing the best we can to educate kids, so.
Any other comments or questions from board members? Okay, so at this time, we will take public comments. If you could come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, keep your comments to 3 minutes, and which agenda item you have a comment or a question on, that would be great. Okay, seeing none, Mr. Marshall, could you please review the agenda items for tonight?
Sure. So tonight, agenda number 1 was informational only, the Upper Darby brand ambassadors. Ms. Buford went through and presented this new initiative and how it aligns with the district's goals and vision. Agenda number 2, it's for board action, is the school calendar for the 2021 school year. Ms. Kelly presented that this evening. We'll be for board action to move it to the February board meeting for a vote. Number 3 is informational only, delayed start time for adolescents, and again, our next steps for how we're going to continue to investigate this report, and what it potentially could look like here in Upper Darby School District.
Miss Kelly, with the balancing of the semesters, do you need more time, or do you feel like you could make any necessary adjustments prior to the next board meeting?
We could make any prior adjustments, and then we would notify the board through a weekly update and notify the public as well with the next revision.
So is everyone comfortable moving forward for a February vote on the calendar? Yes. Yes. All right. I know Mr. Brown has something to say before we adjourn.
This is a positive thing. I just want to give a kudos and acknowledge Ms. Rhonda Buford for this past Sunday. Dr. McGarry and I had the opportunity to be interviewed on the radio for about 45 minutes, and she set that up. She made that connection, and it really gave us the opportunity to be brand ambassadors for the school district and really talk about the wonderful things that we're doing and the things that we're on the precipice for. So just wanted to thank you for that. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I think the Stacy Scott did a great job of allowing us to extol the virtues of the Upper Darby School District. So thank you for that. Thank you for your work.
Thank you, thank you. And she wanted me to make sure that she told you that I told you on her behalf that normally the segments that she runs are 10 minutes. But when she read our story that I presented to her in a synopsis, she wanted to extend it to learn more about Upper Darby School District. And she was just so impressed with our handling of some of the recent media events, how authentic we were. She thought Dr. McGarry was cute.
Oh, yeah. Did she really make him blush? She said she made him blush.
Yes, he turned beak red. And then she's offered to extend the partnership in amazing ways. So Dan and I are working on some great things with them, things that are going to be around social determinants, as we talked about, providing food and all those things that we need before students can be prepared to learn. And then some job shadowing opportunities and career and college readiness stuff.
Yeah, I listened to the interview. I was super impressed. What I also was really impressed with was the three of you and how authentic you were. I felt like I was in just your office chatting with you about, the things that you really care about. So thank you.
It was easy to talk about Upper Darby. We love this place.
I just think the other cool part about that is we met a young man who was the young engineer, who was really cool, neat guy. We took pictures with him. We're going to bring him to try to talk to our kids to talk about that. It's an African American owned. The history that I was reading in before we went on, which is interesting, the history of how that came about. The physician Lomax down in Philadelphia, which is inspiring. That we should share that story with our kids, that you can do that and give back. And then I also we were kicking around the idea that we should have our own kind of radio or our cable channel, use it differently, that way with our kids, interviewing and asking those kinds of questions. We already have some forums where they do that here, so we got some ideas where we'd like to do it. But compliments to you. It was great. It was a lot of fun, so I appreciate you setting it up. Good for you.
And thanks for giving up your Sunday evening. So at this time, there's a motion in order for adjournment.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Good night, everyone.